Football, in its purest essence, is built upon the foundational myth of meritocracy. We tune in by the billions because we desperately want to believe that within those 90 minutes, inside those white lines, power, wealth, and geopolitical dominance cease to matter. We want to believe that 11 determined human beings, through sheer willpower, tactical genius, and collective sacrifice, can tear down giants. But history is rarely pure. Every so often, the heavy, corporate curtain of reality is pulled back, revealing a rotten, cynical core where the powerful protect the powerful, and the dreams of the small are sacrificed on the altar of convenience. To understand the absolute peak of this sporting corruption, we must travel back to the summer of 1982, to the sun-drenched stadiums of Spain, where a tiny, passionate nation named Algeria would pull off the greatest miracle the World Cup had ever seen, only to become the victims of a calculated, cold-blooded conspiracy that forced the global game to permanently rewrite its laws. To fully comprehend the stakes of the 1982 World Cup, one must first understand the geopolitical backdrop of the Algerian national team. This was not just a squad of athletic football players. They were the sons of a bloody, brutal revolution. Algeria had won its independence from French colonial rule just 2 decades prior, in 1962, after a devastating war that left deep scars on the national psyche. For Algerians, football was a profound expression of their newfound sovereignty, a way to command respect on the global stage as equals. The squad of 1982, featuring legendary domestic talents like Lakhtar Belloumi and Rabah Madjer, had taken Africa by storm. They played a mesmerizing, fluid brand of passing football, deeply technical and fearlessly aggressive, which earned them the nickname the Desert Warriors. Yet, when they arrived in Spain for their first ever World Cup appearance, the Eurocentric football establishment viewed them with condescending amusement. They were treated as a novelty, a token representative from a developing continent, brought in merely to fill the numbers and provide easy points for the traditional heavyweights. This arrogant dismissiveness reached its toxic absolute peak within the camp of their first opponents, West Germany. The West Germans were the reigning champions of Europe, a terrifying footballing machine packed with world-class superstars like Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Paul Breitner, and Felix Magath. They were not just expected to win the tournament, they were expected to colonize it. When the draw placed Germany, Austria, Chile, and Algeria together in Group 2, the German camp treated the upcoming match against the African debutantes as an absolute joke. In the days leading up to the game in the northern city of Gijon, the German players and coaching staff engaged in an unprecedented campaign of psychological bullying in the international press. One prominent German player arrogantly boasted to journalists that they would dedicate their 7th goal to their wives and their 8th to their dogs. Another player suggested they should play the match with cigars in their mouths just to pass the time. The West German manager, Jupp Derwall, went even further, publicly declaring that if his team somehow managed to lose to a team like Algeria, he would immediately jump onto the first train back to Munich. The German newspaper headlines mocked the Algerian players, treating them as amateurs who should feel privileged just to share the same grass as the European masters. But arrogance is the ultimate trap in international sports, and the Desert Warriors were quietly transforming that disrespect into rocket fuel. On June 16, 1982, under the blinding Mediterranean sun at the El Molinón Stadium, the whistle blew, and the world prepared for a routine slaughter. What unfolded instead was an earth-shattering masterclass in tactical discipline and sheer, unadulterated passion. From the very first minute, the Algerians did not retreat into a defensive shell. They looked the European champions dead in the eye and matched them blow for blow. The Germans, used to bullying opponents with physical dominance, found themselves completely paralyzed by the astonishing speed and telepathic chemistry of the Algerian counterattacks. In the 54th-minute, the unthinkable happened. Algeria broke away on a lightning-fast transition, and Rabah Madjer struck a fierce, historic shot into the back of the German net. The stadium erupted. The German bench sat in stunned, frozen silence. Although the legendary Rummenigge managed to scratch out an equalizer for Germany in the 67th minute, the Algerian spirit refused to break. Barely 60 seconds later, directly from the restart, the Desert Warriors carved through the multi-million-dollar German defense with a sequence of 9 flawless, rapid-fire passes, culminating in a beautiful, decisive goal by Lakhdar Belloumi. Algeria held on, winning the match 2-1. It was a seismic shock that sent convulsions through the entire sporting world. A nation born of revolution had just humbled the ultimate empire of European football. The victory instantly turned Algeria into the darlings of the neutral world. However, the format of the 1982 World Cup was uniquely cruel and deeply flawed. Unlike modern tournaments where the final matches of the group stage are played at the exact same time to ensure fairness, FIFA's scheduling in 1982 was a bureaucratic disaster. Matches were staggered across different days. Algeria played their third and final group match against Chile on June 24th, fighting through a tense, exhausting 90 minutes to secure a magnificent 3-2 victory. With 2 wins out of 3 matches, Algeria had done everything humanly possible. They had accumulated 4 points in the group stage. Because of the staggered schedule, their final match concluded a full 24 hours before the other 2 teams in the group, West Germany and Austria, were set to play their final game. As the Algerian players celebrated in their hotel rooms that night, laughing and embracing, they believed they had secured a historic, miraculous qualification into the second round. They believed the hard work was done and that the integrity of the game would carry them through. They had no idea that behind closed doors, a cynical, mathematical equation was being calculated that would render all their sweat, blood, and tears completely meaningless. The staggered schedule had handed West Germany and Austria the ultimate, dangerous gift, absolute, perfect foresight. When the 2 European neighbors stepped onto the pitch at El Molinón the following day, on June 25th, the math of the group was entirely transparent to both teams. Because Algeria had already finished their matches with a goal difference of 0, West Germany knew that a victory was mandatory for them to avoid a humiliating first-round exit. Austria, on the other hand, had won their previous 2 matches and possessed a superior goal difference. Therefore, a highly specific, sinister window of opportunity presented itself. If West Germany won the match by exactly 1 or 2 goals, both West Germany and Austria would advance to the next round on goal difference, and Algeria would be brutally eliminated. If Germany won by 3 or more goals, Austria would go home. If the match ended in a draw or an Austrian win, Germany would go home. The 2 European powers, historic rivals but cultural cousins, realized they held the complete destiny of the group in their hands. They didn't need to fight. They just needed to cooperate. What happened next over the following 90 minutes would go down in infamy as the Disgrace of Gijón, a match so profoundly toxic, so aggressively devoid of sportsmanship, that it remains a permanent, bleeding wound on the history of international sports. The match began with a deceptive veneer of high intensity. The West Germans, desperate to secure their mandatory victory, pressed forward with fierce urgency. In the 10th minute, German attacker Horst Hrubesch connected with a cross and violently smashed the ball into the Austrian net, making the score 1-0. It was a perfectly executed goal, but the moment that ball crossed the line, the competitive spirit of the World Cup died an instant, horrifying death. Suddenly, as if an invisible switch had been flipped by a corporate mastermind, the game transformed into a grotesque, slow-motion farce. Both teams had achieved their exact mathematical utopia. Germany was winning and going through, and Austria was losing by a small enough margin to join them. For the remaining 80 minutes of the match, the 22 players on the pitch entered into a silent, shameless pact of non-aggression. They stopped running. They stopped tackling. The ball was casually, lazily passed backward and forward across the halfway line, with players occasionally kicking it all the way back to their own goalkeepers. There were no shots on goal, no tactical maneuvers, and absolutely no intention of playing football. It was a meticulously choreographed piece of theater designed to run out the clock, entirely designed to protect their mutual interests and seal Algeria's doom. As the minutes dragged on, the stadium at El Molinón transformed into a cauldron of pure, unadulterated fury. The local Spanish spectators, who had come to watch a thrilling clash of titans, realized they were witnessing a multi-million-dollar scam. Disgusted by the total lack of sportsmanship, they began waving white handkerchiefs and screaming "Fuera, fuera," demanding that both teams be thrown out of the country. The fury crossed national boundaries. Angry West German fans in the stands, deeply ashamed of their country's cynical behavior, openly burned their own national flags and wept. The commentary booths overlooking the pitch were paralyzed by shock and professional disgust. The German television commentator, Eberhard Stanjek, openly refused to broadcast the match any longer, turning off his microphone and calling the event a disgrace. The Austrian commentator, equally horrified, advised his viewers to turn off their television sets entirely and watch something else. Even the stadium security could barely contain the outrage as desperate Algerian fans pushed to the front railings, throwing real banknotes onto the pitch to symbolize the blatant financial and political corruption unfolding before their eyes. When the final whistle blew, sealing the calculated 1-0 German victory, the players walked off the pitch to a chorus of deafening boos and flying garbage, but their cruel mission was accomplished. Austria and West Germany had successfully engineered their way into the next round, while Algeria was officially eliminated from the World Cup without a fair fight, the tragic victims of a European conspiracy. The Algerian Football Federation immediately launched a furious, official protest with FIFA. They presented ironclad evidence of collusion, demanding that both West Germany and Austria be disqualified for bringing the game into disrepute, or that the match be voided entirely. But in a move that surprised no one familiar with the conservative, defensive nature of sports governing bodies, FIFA ruled that because no official written rules had been technically broken, the result would stand. The Giants had used the system to protect themselves, and the rules of the era allowed them to get away with it. However, the moral sacrifice of this tiny African nation was not in vain. The sheer public outrage, the global condemnation, and the absolute humiliation of the event forced FIFA into a corner. To prevent such a shameful, mathematical manipulation from ever crippling the integrity of the World Cup again, the authorities were compelled to permanently alter the structural laws of the tournament. From that dark day forward, FIFA instituted a mandatory rule that remains the ultimate cheat code for fairness to this very day. The final group stage matches of every single international tournament must be played simultaneously on the exact same day, at the exact same hour. Algeria was robbed of their well-deserved glory, but their tragic exit exposed the deepest rot in the system and forced the football world to fix its broken laws. It stands as a timeless historical reminder that the courage of an underdog can reshape the rules of the world, ensuring that the beautiful game remains beautiful for generations to come.